1, 2. Now the Chiefs have a chance for history. No one has ever won 3 straight Super Bowls. Will Kansas City pull it off and put Patrick Mahomes and company into rarefied air?
The rematch all of America was looking for. The Chiefs and the Eagles. Can the Eagles take down Mahomes and the Chiefs to sit atop of the NFL hierarchy?
Super Bowl 59 is creeping ever so closely this weekend. Sunday Scaries with Buccs McGee previews all the top headlines.
It's finally here. Feels like the long, windy road, 17 games, playoffs, and here we are. The Super Bowl, nutmeg. Maybe not the two teams we wanted in the big
Oh,
game, but here we are, and I guess we got some things to talk about.
and for the second year in a row, Bucks McGee, a rematch of a previous Chiefs Super Bowl. I mean, I guess on top of that, we just talk like comparisons from the last Eagles Chiefs matchup. I mean, there's really the Chiefs are similar enough, but then the Eagles are pretty much the same team aside from some young pieces and then Saquon.
Yeah, well, I think the Chiefs are offensively vastly different. They're definitely not the high powered offense of those last two championship teams. They scrape, claw their way, and somehow pull it out at the end of every game. It seems like this Eagles team maybe a little more balanced. It's not necessarily all tush push.
Yeah.
Saquon's come in and turned them into a run first team, and with a little sprinkle here and there of Jalen Hurts and wide receivers. So the matchup, even though the teams are the same, the units I think are a bit different.
Saquon just sets up the tush push.
That's what he does. Why would you want to give him like 25, 26 touchdowns a season? You got to let Jalen do something.
Yeah. he 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 can't put Tomlinson's record at risk too fast.
No, slow build, slow build.
um, on that note, I mean, the last time they played, Tyreek was already gone, so I mean, maybe the sum of the parts for the Chiefs still worked a little bit better, or at least visually so. But I mean, it was still kind of a hodgepodge of also ran wide receivers. It just they kind of aren't buoyed by a dominant Travis Kelce this time around. But I
Well,
mean, the offense kind of is similar-ish, maybe different pieces, but
I think it's a almost a little bit more of a run centric offense.
mm,
With Kareem Hunt and Pachenko now, I think they run a little more. But yeah, you're right. Travis Kelce, was the center of that offense. A couple of years younger. Now he's a couple of years older. Yeah, there was a hodgepodge, but those guys, were able to, catch the ball. Don't forget, last year was, drop palooza, and they still were able to pull it out. But I think this offense now is not as fast. They grind it out. I think it's more, a lot of it is, can Mahomes, turn something into nothing? Guys have to be in their spots when the ball is delivered, because if not, this offense does not click. And the run game is a big part of it. If the run game wasn't as good as it was, I don't think this offense is as highly mediocre as it is. Not taking anything away, like they score points, but if you compare them, to the other two teams, Chiefs teams, those teams putting up points, like they was going out of business. Here they grind it out. So it's the run game is what drives this team.
considering the fact that Pacheco was hurt in the middle of the season and Kareem Hunt was a pickup practice squad because nobody wanted him. He was probably I don't want to say toxic, but kind of had a bad connotation from his off the field situations. So nobody
Mm-hmm.
probably wanted to go near him. The Chiefs were the only ones that would touch him because he had been a Chiefs before. He knows the system probably still. So that's probably why he wound up back there. But if you consider, like, let's say that doesn't happen, or let's say Pacheco's injury was more significant than it was, you could argue that that running game does not buoy them, and this team not only may not even get to the Super Bowl, but may not even get the number one seed and kind of have the inside track to get here.
No, that's exactly it. Like the run game is what got them here. And of course, Mahomes and the magical, 15-yard runs for the first down and all that mumbo jumbo. But the run game sets this offense up, and you can't deny that. So yeah, without Hunt and Pacheco, getting hurt and all of those things lining up, you're right. This team probably isn't in this position, and that's going to be key for them in this game. So the run game is their calling card now. They do have, Worthy and D Hop, but D Hop, he's been decent, but I think some people thought he was going to go to Kansas City and turn them into a 32 point a game, offense. And they thought Worthy was just going to run up and down the
Yeah.
field, a la Tyreek Hill, and they were going to revisit the glory days. And it just it hasn't happened.
Yeah, and it's hard to pinpoint why. Is it because Hopkins is over the hill ish, so to speak, or is it just because he doesn't have a good in sync relationship with Holmes this early on?
I don't think Hopkins was never a burner to begin with. He was always like a great
Possession.
possession receiver. That's what everybody, talked about with his hands. Like he could catch anything. You put the ball up there, he's gonna get it. So that's what his claim to fame is. And I think everyone thought Worthy was just gonna come in and just start running around and be Tyreek Hill. And that isn't the case. He's got the speed, but he's got to learn to run routes. I think he's getting to that point, but it takes some time. And when you're the only guy, he's technically the number one receiver. Like, let's not count
Mm-hmm.
Kelce. Let's
Yeah.
take him out of the equation. If you're talking wide receivers, it's who's the real number one. You could flip a coin. You could say D Hop or Worthy. Honestly, like I don't think either one of them is really like the de facto number one. But we know that the passing game does run through Travis Kelce. He's gotten a little slower. He still can, find his spots in the zones. And that's why it's tough to play zone against them because against the Chiefs, because he can read a zone well and just settles in. And that's his bread and butter.
Yeah, he's kind of like not necessarily the game breaker now, but he's the guy that the defense doesn't want to leave uncovered.
Exactly. So unless you have a really, really good, quick and athletic type defense, if you let Travis kind of just wander around, that's how this offense starts to get on track. And the next thing you know, Hunt's running for 7-8 yards at a clip. You got Pacheco, so it's interesting. Like they're not flashy, they don't put up the stats, but they get the points.
And Worthy, it's also might be a usage thing because he's kind of been the gadget guy. He's in the run, featured in the run game quite a bit, whereas Tyreek really wasn't. So it also could be a usage thing with ah, with Worthy. It also could be a usage thing with Worthy, uh, as much as a just new kid on the block.
It could be that. It could be, maybe they don't feel he can run some decent routes, but Tyreek was just a different animal.
Yeah.
Tyreek was just different. So I think it's going to take him another year or so to for them to really figure out how he's going to work in this offense. Because let's be honest, they're going to have to go back to the well in the offseason, regardless of what happens on Sunday, to figure out what the wide receiver situation is going to be. Like let's be real.
Yeah.
Like that wide receiver room is adequate at best. There's nothing that wows you. So they're gonna have to figure out where he fits and whatever pieces they're gonna bring along or bring into that room. So again, especially in this game, Travis kind of dictates where this offense is gonna go along with the run game.
So I don't necessarily want to call this the elephant in the room, but the
Mm-hmm.
Chiefs are chasing history. It's the biggest sore thumb probably storyline probably associated with the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, this I don't want to ask will they do it. We'll save our picks till the end of the show. But what's
Mm-hmm.
kind of at stake for them if they do it? If they do if they do it, what's kind of at stake for Mahomes' legacy as a quarterback versus other quarterbacks in history of the league, and what's at stake for Andy Reid as a head coach? Like where would they kind of fall with the third straight win?
Well, let's be honest. At this point, if it happens, they probably are the greatest dynasty in NFL history. Let's be honest. No one's done three in a row. It's fact. So you have to give them that. And with the way that this team has kind of morphed from that first title to what they are now, it's impressive. It
Yeah,
really is. It is. They aren't as dynamic offensively. They basically are a run defense first type team. So you have to give them credit. Andy's been able to kind of, turn this offense into something that they can get by with, and a lot of it has been, Patrick, it's been magic. Let's be honest. A lot of plays that probably shouldn't have happened that happened, able to pull out first downs and things of that nature. So you'd have to give them, the greatest dynasty in football all time. You give them that. When it comes to Andy Reid, he's definitely in that conversation for probably greatest coach of all time. He's in the conversation. But with those conversations, and the same thing with Mahomes, the whole GOAT thing, it all depends on what your list is. How do you list it by? If you're going on titles, then he's entrenched in two. You'd call him number two. If that's what you're going with,
mm-hmm.
because you have to think of, Brady is longevity.
Yeah,
Brady had that 10-year span between titles, but you look at the numbers and you look what he did throughout his career into his 40s. There are people who, when he was in his mid to late 30s, said, "Oh, he's about to hit the cliff. He's about to hit the cliff." And when he didn't hit the cliff and all of a sudden kicked it into another gear, that's when the GOAT Tom was cemented as the GOAT. So now the question is let's say, Mahomes, they win it, and then all of a sudden, let's say they win maybe one more, or they don't win again, and he's done in 4 or 5 years. Because this Chiefs team is going to change.
yeah.
Like, how many years does Travis have left? Like, there's a lot of variables here.
And
So
how many times can they restructure Patrick's contract?
exactly. And after a while, the tires start to go. Like, is he going to be able to run around? He's not the quickest guy. So if you're telling me he's going to play maybe a year or two less than Brady, and you look at the numbers, then okay, then I think at that point you could be definitive. But if you're telling me he stop, another, let's say, 5 years, and he hangs it up, and he's at 5 rings, like I said, it's a discussion. I think
Mhm.
most people would still give the nod to Brady, but people are enamored with what Mahomes does on the field, so that's just what it is. It's however you want to rank them and what you're going to use. But no, that's what's at stake. But I don't think it's not like, oh, if they don't get this, then that's it, it's over, because they probably have another year, maybe if they don't win this year, next year is probably it. Let's be honest, especially in that division, things are starting to tighten up rapidly, and in the AFC, like if they want a clear cut Super Bowl, this is the last year, because next year I think is going to be really tough for them. But if you're talking legacy, that's where it stands for, the Chiefs as a whole, Mahomes and Reid.
Okay, pause on that. I'm going to circle back to it. But a couple minutes ago, you just used Patrick Mahomes and Magic unironically in the same sentence. Did
Yeah,
your
I
stomach
did.
turn a little bit? You stopped my heart a bit in that statement.
Okay, I don't want to use the term refs, so I use the term magic.
Okay. No bunnies, no bunnies.
I'm here because I have to be. A la Marshawn Lynch. I'm here so I don't get fined. So
Yeah,
that's
beer
me.
soda. Okay, fine. Yes, we got very strict rules on this podcast. Attendance
In the
matters.
con, this, I got to rework this contract because I'm telling you, man. Mm-mm. But no, that's really it with the Chiefs. Like I said, and if they weren't to win, if they were to lose, they like I said, I think they still have one more year of really high competitive. But things will change. That it's not like they can start just picking pieces and throwing it in. Like they've had this window because they've been a pretty young team, but they've got a lot of guys in free agency. You got a lot of guys getting older, so it's going to
Well,
be the next couple of years of how they change. But the legacy is there for them.
let's dive deeper on the chasing Brady situation because the state of the AFC right now, we were pretty convinced that this was going to be a wide open race between, the Ravens adding Henry and Lamar coming off an MVP season, the Bills being the Bills and not falling off like we thought they would. We weren't expecting the Cincinnati collapse, but they got back going. But they're still a very inconsistent team. Houston, a little bit of a downturn, but still a lot of talent. So, I mean, there's a lot out there, but there's also a lot of question marks. So, I mean, like, hypothetically speaking, if the Chiefs do pull this off, I mean, what is the realistic road ahead for Patrick to catch Brady?
So if he wins this is what, four?
Four. Yep.
Four, right? So he would need to catch Brady. He'd need three more. To overtake as a whole, he'd need four more. The question is are the Chiefs built to win another three? The way this team is constituted today, and the factors of the way everything is starting to change in the AFC, can they continue the way that they're built and win another four? I don't think so. I don't. Like I said, free agency is going to take a hit on this team. They don't have the money to pay everybody. Like, let's be real. It's not like they're all going to take discounts and say, yeah, we want 7 rings. We want to do it for Patty. Yeah. Like, these guys are going to want to get paid because after a while it's, hey man, yeah, Patrick gets the front page, but what about us? There's going to be guys. How much more does Chris Jones have in the tank?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's guys that are going to say, hey, I need to get paid. Don't forget, Ladarius Sneed left. Now, they've done it without him, but he left. Let's say McDuffie. Let's say when he comes up for contract. Yeah, how many times is Mahomes going to restructure his deal? Is he going to go the Brady route and be like, no, that's fine. Go, go, go? Because let's be honest, Brady was always a mid-paid guy. He was never a number one paid guy.
Yeah.
That's fact. So you have that. How many more years? Andy said he's coming back next year, but he only said next year. Is he taking it year by year? Now, let's say they get bounced out the first. Let's say they don't get the number one seed next year, right? Let's say, 3 or 4, whatever. Let's say they get bounced in the first round. Maybe Andy's like, you know what, man? It's been fun, but you know what? Maybe it's time. Travis Kelce. Okay, still a productive tight end, but there's miles on that tread. That tread isn't as strong as it used to be. Let's say, he gets, nicked up, injured, sits out 3 or 4 games next year. Let's say you don't really bring in a real, piece in the wide receiver room. So there's things where, this team is going to change. And it's great, and everyone's like, yeah, they're together. They're going to think this is going to be forever, as with most dynasties. Fans and all think, oh, they're not going to get old. No one's ever going to leave. This is going to be great forever. The AFC is going to change starting next year. Let's be honest. Houston, they got bit by the injury bug, something fierce. And yeah, Stroud was off this year. Injuries were part of that. That defense is still legitimate. They're only going to get better. The Chargers, I think, are going to be a team to reckon with. Buffalo, honestly, it's their last stand. If they can't figure this out next year, then it's a wrap. They're already in the fraudulent penthouse starting next year. So we don't even know what they're going to be like. Same thing with the Ravens. You know, you can only be so close. So all these other teams are going to start creeping up, and before you know it, Kansas City is going to be in dogfights. So, you know, I don't know if they're going to win another 3. If they win tomorrow, I don't know if they win another 3 in this fashion. It might be 5 or 6 years and they pin another one on, but I think next year there's a serious gap closing, and it may not be as simple as, you know, we're just going to run it back.
You're very excited for the Super Bowl, I see, thinking it's tomorrow.
The final week, it always seems like you wake up, you're like, oh, is it today? No, dang. It's like a kid. You're like, oh, it's Christmas Eve. No, it's like 3 days away. And you're like, dang it. Whatever. So.
With now, obviously, there with Patrick's legacy, like we've gone over, needs a few more years for it to really be solidified. But Andy's, do you think a win on Sunday is like he's at the top of the heap now, or at least like sharing the throne with the Chuck Knowles and the Belichick's and the Don Shula?
I think he's probably number. I'd say no. I'd say if he wins on Sunday, he overtakes Noel just because of the way this has all been done. And at this point, I think he is just below Belichick, just below.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nipping at his heels. You could say 1A, 1B, but no, I think most people would say Andy Reid's legacy is solidified. He's no doubt a top 5 of all-time coach.
So the edge only goes to Belichick because of quantity versus Andy's kind of almost a virtual tie because of the way his Super Bowls have gone and the way he's won them.
Well, with Belichick, yeah, there's quantity, but you also have to see the longevity of it too. Mm-hmm. You know, if you really think about it, you know, Belichick's had longevity as well. Not only as a coordinator, he's won, but also as a head coach. You know, Andy's done it, you know, has won, you know, in this finite amount of time. Belichick, all of Brady, you know, basically tied at the hip. It's been longevity. So, yeah, well, like I said, at the end of the day, how do you quantify who's the GOAT? Is it number of rings? Is it stats? Is it, oh, they're the most athletic? Because if you're talking that, then all of a sudden, you know, the Aaron Rodgers fans of the world are going to come banging on your door. Oh, wow, the way he throws a ball and he's so athletic, blah, blah, blah. You'll get that conversation.
We know you don't want that.
Yeah. So it's hard to put 10 people in a room and have them say, okay, well, how do you quantify it? Can we come up with some agreement? It's like trying to figure out the, you know, college football #1 ranking system. Everyone's got their own thought process. So until you want to come up with a guaranteed, this is how we're going to rank the GOATs or the greatest, it's almost popular opinion. But a lot of the time it's, okay, well, how many you got?
Putting 10 people in the room trying to figure out who the best quarterback of all time is probably not as simple as counting cards in blackjack.
Yep. So there's always going to be someone who's got an opinion about somebody else, you know?
Yeah. Well, let's talk defense because, you know, it's funny in this modern NFL, these dominant offenses and these eye-popping numbers that were just like, why are these numbers a thing? This was not a thing even 5 years ago. It was a rarity with, you know, the Peyton Mannings of the world. And, you occasionally you have an explosion from Brady or Breeze or Rodgers or somebody like that. But that was really kind of an exclusive thing to see the numbers eye pop. And now it's every quarterback in the league practically. So to me, it's almost very notable that we have these two defenses that are both exceptional units fighting for the final prize.
No, you know, but the way the defense is in the league now, this is an offensive-driven league. Let's be honest. Everybody knows that quarterbacks try to throw for PI. Let's be honest. That's just how it is. If they're running side by side, you put that ball up and you're hoping that your guy gets the call. That's what it is. But yeah, these defenses are really good. You know, let's be honest. You know, the Chiefs have been doing it for the last couple of years on their defense. led by Chris Jones. They get that push. Their linebackers are solid. You got, McDuffie in the back, in the secondary. So these guys, Justin Reid, these guys are good. When it comes to the Eagles, you got Carter, Slay, and these guys. You got young talent in the secondary that's really come along strong. And they're
Mitchell.
yep, exactly. Like unbelievable talent. Cooper DeJean, who, was kind of like, okay, he wasn't a joke, but everyone was like, oh, look at this. He's a cornerback. I don't think, the great next Jason Sehorn, people were saying,
You love
and, man, Cooper DeJean is the real deal, man. That kid can play, man. If they just made a mistake and just released him by accident, Tampa better grab that boy with a heartbeat. I don't care. Cooper DeJean is the real deal, man. Iowa, good kid. But at the end of the day, that Eagles front, led by Carter, those guys get after it. Those guys will make an offensive line just cry. Those guys are hard, quick, and they don't mess around. But it's going to be interesting to see how these defenses go in this game. Chiefs, basically, the question is, do they just key on Saquon? Do they say, okay, you know what, Jalen, you're going to beat us. We're going to shut down Saquon. And for the Eagles, it's, okay, just shut down Mahomes and let the run game try to dictate everything.
Yeah. I'm gonna get to that. But it's interesting that both defenses are led by very grizzled coordinators. Vic Fangio been around forever and a day. Spagnuolo not only has been around a while at this point, but he's got the hardware to back up his longevity as well. Is there kind of an edge situation with these two, just from a cerebral perspective?
Oh yeah, I would say Spags has it. Let's be honest. He's got the resume. He's the guy who basically came up the plan to shut down Brady. With those giant Super Bowls. Like, let's be honest. And now he's doing it in Kansas City. He gets, these guys love to play for him. He's creative. They don't blitz a whole lot. But when they bring that blitz, it's usually at a key moment in the game, and it usually gets through. So, and Vic, like you said, he's been around the block. He can take a defense and, turn it into something special. So these guys know what to do. But yeah, if you're talking edge right now, you got to say Spags.
Which unit do you think is the most balanced from front to back end? Because the Chiefs unit's been pretty consistent throughout the season. The Eagles unit, it was all the up front, especially coming off of last year, and the secondary took a little bit to get going. But once they kind of found their groove, once Mitchell got used to being in the league, they quickly became an elite unit in their own right. So, which unit do you think is more elite from front four to secondary?
Wow.
More balanced, I should say. Which unit more balanced?
Wow. Slightly the Chiefs, I guess, because they've done it on this stage. I think they're a little bit, but if you're talking athletically, I think the Eagles are. I think the Eagles are stronger on the front, and I think their linebackers are a little quicker. A little quicker than the Chiefs. I think they can make a couple more athletic plays. But right now, I would say the Chiefs slightly.
Do you see any comparisons? Because if we think of the Super Bowl that Patrick lost, it was because your Bucks brought all the heat throughout the game. Now their offensive line was very injured in that game, so I'm sure that made the path of resistance a little less. But that was the recipe for victory, just constant pressure and throw Patrick around like a rag doll. Do you see any comparisons to the Eagles pass rush to make you think that they could repeat that?
Oh yeah, they're going to bring the house. There's no doubt. Honestly, if you really look at the Chiefs offensive line, it's not that great. They've had some holes. They haven't really held up. And there's been the issues of false starts.
Yeah,
Jawan Taylor and stuff. And I think there's going to be a lot of watch on that. because there's been a lot of talk during the week. The head of the refs union there wrote a letter basically to the league saying they felt it was unfair that they were being judged, saying that they were basically helping the Chiefs win.
Mm-hmm.
When a lot of and let's be honest, it's out there. America would love to see the Chiefs lose because they feel that the refs have missed a lot of calls and a lot of things have gone the Chiefs' way, and it's frustrated a lot of fans. So I think what it comes down to is the Eagles are going to sit there, pin their ears back, and they're going to say, okay, let's see if this offensive line can handle it. Now, they may not bring it all night, but they're a physical bunch. And if they can get some false starts, and if Carter can cause some havoc, it's going to really cause some issues. And those wide receivers, they're decent, but the corners and the secondary there, safeties and such of the Eagles, those are some bad men, and they're going to bring that Philly attitude.
Mama, he's a bad man.
Now, I'm telling you, man, Reid Blankenship, that guy is legit. Like you said, Mitchell, Slay,
Mm-hmm.
he wants his ring. Like, I think these guys are ready, and I think this defense feels that they have to perform for them to win a Super Bowl. I think this defense is going to play like it's them and not the offense that has to win this.
Yeah, and the 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 goat in the negative context of the word, Bradbury, if I'm not mistaken, from the last Super Bowl.
Oh Lord,
You
yeah,
know,
Misty.
he's not a part of this mix anymore. So you can't really, that you kind of can't rely on that quick blame, that scapegoat situation. This is a new secondary for Patrick going up against.
Oh, and I guarantee you they've watched that film and they know that. I'm sure it's been talked about in that building. You know, we kind of got shafted. I think a lot of people felt that call in that game was wrong, but it is what it is. I don't think you're going to see stuff like that in this game. I think there's going to
Yeah,
be a real onus on watching the refs, and I think, like I said, this Eagles secondary knows what happened last time, that they were close to winning it. So they're gonna play hard and fast, but I think they're more mature bunch than they were before. Even though they got some young guys on there, these guys understand what's at stake.
yeah, much more discipline this time around. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Now we spoke on the strategy for the Eagles as far as pressure first. Now the strategy for the Chiefs is obviously stopping one Mr. Saquon Barkley, who, if he doesn't win the MVP, he is most assuredly a lock for Offensive Player of the Year. Uh, so this one, to me, I feel like I haven't gotten to the point throughout the postseason where I trust
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Hurts again. So if the Chiefs could somehow take Saquon out of this, or at least limit him to the point where he's maybe only 60 yards rushing, maybe 15, 20 yards receiving, very, very pedestrian. I don't know if Jalen Hurts can make up the difference. So how it's easy to say that stopping Saquon is critical, but what's kind of the range of how critical stopping Saquon is?
Well, here's the deal. The question is how are the Chiefs going to do it? Are they just going to, say, all right, we're not going to put any guys in the box and we're just going to let the front guys deal with Saquon and hopefully stop them? Because here's the deal. If Saquon gets hot early, you've got to bring guys in the box. You have to.
Yeah.
So then at that point, the Eagles have weapons. So then if you're bringing like a Reid or McDuffie in the box, anything like that, if and you're starting to thin out that secondary, who's stopping AJ Brown?
I would hope McDuffie would be on variable Revis Island out there with AJ Brown.
Okay, and then you got Smith, who's stopping Smith.
Yeah.
Now he's slowly starting to come around. He's like that guy. Yeah, he's not big, he's not physical, but he's quick. He gets to his spots, and he can really extend a defense. Dallas Goedert,
Yeah, you
you
just need
know,
to make sure Jalen actually looks at those two guys.
and I think he will. I think Jalen also is kind of sitting there looking at this and saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, we have Saquon, but let's not forget about me. I was in the MVP conversation not too long ago.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's simple. If they put too many guys in the box and it all becomes the stop the Saquon show, Hurts he's a good quarterback. It's not like it's Trent Dilfer back there, who game manager there. You know, yeah, we've knocked Jalen, this year, but he hasn't had to be the guy, and I think that's helped him. Saquon's taken a lot of that load off, and he's like, all right, well, I'll throw when I have to throw. Yeah, we would have liked to seen him throw a little more and been a little more, active in the offense, but when it's working, it's working. So now the Chiefs have to sit there and say, okay, that's Saquon. We got to stop him. If the regular front guys can't do it and you got to start filling in the box, that opens it up for them. So it's going to be interesting. It's a tall task because Saquon, no doubt, has been the best back in the league. And he wants a ring not only for Philly, but to stick it to the Giants to say, you know what? This is what you could have had. And here you go.
One final hard one to the New York Brass.
Yeah, like, nice job, guys. I got a ring. So.
Now, obviously, we already spoke about the type of pressure that's on Mahomes with with not only the three-peat, but chasing Brady and being into rarefied air, that sort of thing, or at least solidifying his place in rarefied air. But to your point on Hurts, there's a significant amount of pressure on him too, because you don't want to be 0-2 in your first two Super Bowls. Now you've got that gorilla on your shoulder as far as, well, this guy's the perfect candidate of the guy who'll get us there, but he can't finish the deal. So I mean, how much pressure is on Jalen to kind of prove that he's worthy of the hype and the tape that we see of him?
I don't think there is. There's pressure, of course, to win the Super Bowl, but I don't think it's as much as it was before because that's what
Really?
Saquon was brought there for. Now, if the Saquon thing fell apart, they wouldn't be in this situation. Let's be honest. Saquon was the piece that put them over the top to get them here. Because it wasn't Jalen's arm. We can agree on that. Saquon and that defense are the reason that the Eagles are here today. So all Jalen's got to do is sit there and say, okay, let my man here, 26, do his thing. If he starts doing his thing, Jalen can just sit back there. He's got guys who can take a 5-yard pass and turn it 15, 20 yards. He can be the new and improved, freaking our boy Chad. And you know what guy I'm talking about?
Number 10. Number 10 in
Number
Gangrene.
10, Chad Pennington, the greatest 5 to 10 yard passer of all time. So if he's going to sit there and throw, 10, 15 yards, he does no pressure. If the line holds up because they arguably have the best offensive line in the game. And if that's what happens, there's no pressure on him. He's going to he'll get, maybe he throws for 225, 230, maybe 2 touchdowns and 2 tush pushes. But he doesn't have that pressure of, I've got to throw for 340, 4 touchdowns. I have to go head to head with Patrick Mahomes. Because it's basically Saquon and Jalen versus Patrick.
Do you think that maybe that's the type of quarterback he just needs to be, not just on Sunday, but from here on out in his career, that kind of 220 to 250 type of quarterback and just be very efficient? Maybe he's not the 3,900, 4,500 yard, 30 touchdown type of guy that, we may have thought he was a couple years ago.
I think he can be that guy if he has to be. You want your quarterback to put up numbers and things like that. But when it becomes a point where he's your only thing, he's your only offense, defense is key on that. Like, that's great. You can throw for, 45, 5,000 yards. But if your team, can't win, if there's no balance, then it doesn't mean anything. You might drag your team to a 9-8 record and you still might not make the playoffs. So Jalen, I'm sure he wants to be the guy, but I think he's smart enough to know and say, hey, you know what? In this opportunity, I just got to be smart with the ball. I don't have to be the guy. If they win it this year, then he can come in next year and be like, hey, I want a ring. They open up the offense maybe a little more because I think, you don't want to run Saquon into the ground. Yeah, you got this new toy. And after this year, you want to say, okay, let's find a little more balance. because it's easy to go to the well when it works
Hmm.
as much as it has for them. But no, hey, if I'm him, I'm like, hey, if I'm just trying to win Super Bowls. If I can play clean, if my career average ends up being 250, 2 touchdowns a game, then I'm happy with that. Over 10, 15 years, that'll get you into the hall or close
Yeah.
enough with 3 or 4 rings. So I don't think he should go into this game trying to prove that he's this guy who can carry this team, because that's not what it's about. If you're right now, he's a complimentary piece. So be that guy, direct this offense, and he'll be all right.
To bring it back around to Saquon, just how tough a day do you think it's going to be for him? Is he going to be able to find holes in that defense, or is it going to be a really struggle to get to even 100 yards?
No, I think that Eagles offensive line right now, if you look at both teams, the Eagles have a better offensive line, I believe. I believe their offensive line, I think it's a little healthier. I think it's better. So right now, you lose Jason Kelce, you just, Cam Jurgens steps in and here we go. Just keep it going. There hasn't been any kind of fall off on this offensive line. So I think, the Chiefs, front is going to cause them some issues. It's not going to be, he's not going to bust off 68-yard runs like right off the bat like he did against, Washington and everybody else in, in the first, quarter. I think what'll happen is he'll run, start to tire him out, and then he'll probably bust a big run. But I think, if you told me he gets about 85 to 90 yards, it wouldn't surprise me.
Now, when it comes to Super Bowls, there's always players that come out of nowhere to uh, kind of be a deciding factor in one way or the other. And we've had, I don't want to say fun because it's hurt a little bit in recent years seeing people like MVS and Juju Smith-Schuster being those X factors. So who do you think are the X factors on each team for this game?
Or you mean like Kadarius Toney?
Oh yes. Oh, I forgot about Kadarius Tony.
You
Yeah,
can't forget about Kadarius Toney. Come on now.
I eradicated it from my memory.
Oh wow. Let's see for the Eagles. Wow. See, what's crazy is that the Eagles have like a lot of like name brand guys. Like if you really think about it, but if you're talking all maybe on the offense, maybe Kenneth Gainwell. You
Oh,
know, maybe they use him a little more receiving out of the backfield. Maybe gets a couple crucial first downs. Maybe gets a score. He could be a guy.
maybe
Change of pace.
Saquon's getting beat up a lot, and all of a sudden the Chiefs defense sees him getting pulled for a blow, and they're like kind of go back on their heels a little bit, and Gainwell catches them off guard.
Or they go a little two backs in the backfield. Some interesting stuff like that. So I could see him. Uh, for the Chiefs, dude, man. There's a lot of guys on there with no name.
Yeah,
And to their credit, so I'm gonna go with Noah Gray. I'm gonna go Noah Gray. Because let's be real, he's shown up a bit. I get Noah. He's been the Travis Kelce when Travis Kelce hasn't really shown up,
yeah.
whether he's been nicked up or over covered. So Noah Gray could be a guy.
He's the payoff guy. He's the one getting touched. He's the one getting Travis's touchdowns, like Jalen Hurts on the goal line gets Saquon's.
That's what I was gonna say. He's the Chiefs tush push version right there,
Yeah,
except he's catching balls. So Noah Gray could be that guy.
I'm gonna go with the the other weapons. So for the Eagles, the Devontae Smith of the world. For the Chiefs,
Okay.
the Xavier Worthies of the world, because Worthy on that side has been so he's either amazing, he's a game breaker, or he's unheard of. So I feel like he's almost, even though talent wise he blows away the MVSs and the Jujus and the Tonys of the world, but as far as consistency, he's very much kind of in the mix of those guys in the past. So I feel like if he has a big half or a huge play that kind of separates them a little bit in the second half. I feel like that could be a potential backbreaker for Philadelphia. And then for the Eagles, I the Chiefs cannot afford to let AJ Brown beat them. So to me, that's a situation of Jalen really relying upon, like you said, the Goddards and the Smiths. And I hope and pray to everything holy that he will do that. But it's to me, the other guys on the Eagles offense need to step up because the Chiefs defense is going to be so gung ho and geared towards stopping Barkley and AJ Brown.
No, no, exactly. So it's just going to be who gives first, who makes that crucial mistake, and at that point, who knows?
I think we're in for a pretty close Super Bowl because I feel like these defenses are so evenly matched that a blowout would be such a misnomer, and there's really no significant injuries going into this. I mean, Patrick had that ankle thing, but that seems to be mostly pomp and circumstance as the playoffs have worn on.
This is what it's going to come down to. And unfortunately, America is going to be watching for the yellow laundry. Let's be real here. So that's what it's going to come down to. If it comes down to a close game and there's some controversial call, I'm going to tell you now, America next year is going to be fire and brimstone. Anything Chiefs, the Chiefs fans better lock the doors and don't leave because that's what it's going to be. What America wants is a clean game. Let's be honest. What's a clean game? If the
Yeah,
Chiefs win it clean out, then that's fine. But the refs cannot have a hand in it. Can't.
yeah. No hands to the face, no PI on the
No,
last drive.
no, we're going to throw a flag and then pick it up, and then no explanation as to why the flag was on the
Yeah,
ground but wasn't, and all of America saw the graphic. So I think you're going to see an interesting game from the refs' point of view. But it's those defenses are going to dictate a lot.
that being said, Bucks McGee, who you got and what's the score?
We've reached this point as we've all been on this journey this season on the show. I have begged, I have pleaded with teams from Baltimore to Buffalo for one thing and one thing only. So now I must put my faith into Philadelphia, land of our forefathers. Fly, Eagles, fly. I think the Eagles figure it out. I think the defense causes enough issues to make Patrick uncomfortable. I think the magic runs out. There's only so many times you can win, one possession games and things just go your way. I'm taking the Eagles 34-27.
Wow, a full touchdown difference.
I feel it's gonna be. I feel there's gonna be a defensive play. Something's gonna change the tide. Yeah, I know. The Chiefs are favored a point and a half. Throw that out the window, man. Philly's on a mission. They have to right the wrong. They carry the burden for America on their shoulders, and I think they've got enough.
And 61 points, that means that you are feeling the defenses get shown up or at least tired as the second half wears on.
I do. I do. I think, I think at first it'll be tight. I think some things will loosen up a bit, but at the end of the day, I think that Philly defense will clamp down. Maybe they get a couple pick sixes. That's what it could be. You never know. But I'm gonna go 34-27. I want some entertainment. If it ends up being 10-7 Philly, I'll take that too. But I'm trying to give the people something enjoyable to watch.
That's right. Well, I'm hoping and praying that you are correct. I might even bust out the old TO jersey and do my best fly Eagles fly. But I don't know whether it's a tinfoil hat thing. I don't know whether it's a
Jeez.
distrust. I don't know whether it's a somewhat distrust still of Jalen Hurts. If because the Chiefs game plan is pretty simple. It starts with stopping Barkley. and I just I just don't trust it. I'm gonna begrudgingly say 24-17 Chiefs. I don't trust going against history like this, especially.
No, see, I'm telling. No, no, no. Fine, fine. I will help America out because I'm telling you now. There will be a call in this game that will go against the Chiefs. That's going to turn this game because of so much that's been said. I'm telling
Yeah.
you, it's going to happen. But you wear your tinfoil hat. But at the end of the night, for one night and one night only, we're all Eagles fans and we're flying.
It made me feel like the Riddler at the end of Batman Forever.
Don't speak of that movie. That's trash. That trash.
I'm the Batman.
Trashy movie. Oh my god. Yeah. Thanks, Joel Schumacher. Thanks, Joel Schumacher. I'm sure you're a Chiefs fan too.
Well, Bucks McGee, hopefully for another year it will not be a Chiefs world that we all just live in it. Super Bowl Sunday is finally here, good sir. We are at the finish line. Take us off air.
Here we are, folks. It's crunch time. For all other fan bases, we must unite against one common foe. You know who they are. We don't want to see any more Taylor Swift. We don't want to see any more Patty Mahomes. It is time to get behind our Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly.